Hi, I'm Adam Walkham. I'm a financial planner with Permanent Wealth Partners in London. Today, I want to talk to you about possibly the most unloved and underappreciated asset that we all own. Typically, this may be the second largest asset that you will ever own, and most people tend to just totally ignore this. Now, can you guess what it is yet? It's not hard. It's a pension. So when most people think of the word pensions, their eyes glaze over and they fall asleep. But the idea with your pension, typically as the pension continues to grow, your pension is your retirement. Your pension, the numbers on that page are actually how you pay the bills in retirement, how you eat, how you travel. It encompasses more and more of your retirement savings every year as we move towards contributory pensions. And most people tend to ignore them. The typical scenario is people open their envelope with the pension statement, they look at the statement, has it gone up or down? Yeah. They don't really know. They close the letter, they put it in the bottom drawer and forget about it. That is a mistake. And so today I want to help you understand what you can do and what things to look for in your pension. Now, the first thing to look for is actually the fund. What type of fund is your pension invested in? If you're like 90% of most people, that fund is going to be the default pension fund that the pension provider put you in when you signed up. Typically, this default fund has some equities, but it also has other things like bonds and property. Have a look, see what it is. In our view, for our clients, typically pensions are very long dated assets. You're normally not going to start touching this pension for 10, 15, 20 plus years. So in that environment, we tend to favor equities. Equities are the growth engine of the world. They're the greatest companies in the world and they grow. That's what capitalism does. So we tend to really have a strong bias towards having equity-based funds in your pension. When you go into your pension, have a look as your pension will have plenty of different funds available. Have a look and see what's available. The next one to look for, fees. What fees are you paying on your pension? That should be relatively straightforward to find with modern pensions, although you would be amazed at how tricky some of these older pension schemes can be in terms of obfuscating their fees. But if it's not obvious in front of you what fees you're paying, ask, call them up or email them and ask them. Typically, when we look at a pension, we think about par level for fees is somewhere between 0.4 and 0.5%. That's about par. Anything lower than that is quite good. Anything higher than that is quite expensive. Right. The next one to look for is your pension being lifestyled? Now, lifestyle is a sort of a funny word. The other thing to look for with a lifestyle is your pension invested in a target date fund. Now, these things are dangerous, and I'll tell you why. So a lifestyling of a pension fund, what typically this does, it exposes you to equities as you're younger, and then as you come into your nominated retirement date according to your pension. Now remember that this is just a date picked by the pension fund which they assume you will retire. Normally 10 years before that period, the fund will automatically, without your approval or without even telling you, start changing the asset mix within the fund. That asset mix, they will reduce equities in that asset mix, so therefore reducing the overall growth profile of the pension, and increase cash and increase bonds because these are perceived as safe, in inverted commas, assets. Now, I don't want to highlight frankly, how dangerous this can be. Because if you plan to take all of your pension on day one on the nominated retirement date, that makes sense because you want the volatility of that pension fund to reduce as just before you take it. However, if you're like most people and utilize the advantage of flexible pensions and you don't have a particular one day you're going to take all the fund out, you want to take the fund out flexibly. You want to take a bit of money here, a bit of money there. You've got other assets to use. You don't want a totally de-risked pension on your 65th birthday. You still want some growth. And so lifestyling, without even telling you, forces your pension onto a low, if not no growth option. And I think that's highly, highly dangerous. So look for lifestyling, look for target date funds on your pension and make sure that they are not included. And then the final point I want to highlight is the beneficiaries. Now, again, for the beneficiaries, when we all start taking out a pension, we have to sign a beneficiary form because technically a pension is outside of our estate. So therefore, what that means is that your will does not count towards your pension. You have to fill in a separate beneficiary form. But there's a trick here. Like most people, if you just put 100% to your spouse, that's fine and that's normal. However, if you have children, that potentially puts them at a disadvantage, because if you give 100% of the assets to your spouse, and either you both die at the same time, or you are in a situation where your spouse has already died and you haven't changed your beneficiary form after that. What happens on that situation is the asset or the money, the leftover money in the pension fund, is paid into your estate. That means it becomes taxable from an inheritance tax perspective. Now, the way to get around this is, if you have children, nominate the children on the beneficiary form with at least 1% each. So let's say you've got 3 children, you can have your spouse at 97% and the children at 1% each. What that does is, on the death, it will look to the beneficiaries. And now, if your spouse has already deceased, it will then look to the next line, which will be the 3 children. Now then, in that case, it will then split the asset 3 ways between the children, and the asset will remain outside of the estate from an inheritance tax purposes. And even if actually your spouse is still alive at that point, your spouse has the right to potentially change the allocation. So they can, if they don't want the money from your pension scheme, they can deflect the money down to the children, again outside of inheritance tax. So again, just a really little planning thing to show how important it is to get the beneficiary form right. Well, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed that quick summary. If you've got any questions or you want a full pension analysis done, press the button that this email came in on, and I hope to speak to you soon. Thank you.